Hey, it's Josie Ong with Affirmation Pod, your home for personal development. And this episode was originally intended to be an evening reflection. And I had planned to record it a few days ago, but, well, I had a rough day. That day that I was planning on recording, and then it's kind of been a rough week. Now, of course, when I say rough day, that is relative. When I went through my season of burnout and exhaustion and was in bed for 9 days, didn't go out, mostly cried, and just was immobilized physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, every way pretty much possible. I hardly talked to anyone. I didn't go out. I hardly ate. I remember I just ate like a few walnuts here and there, which is totally unusual for me. I have a very healthy appetite. That was a rough week. And that's a very different rough week from what I'm calling a rough week this week. Because when I share this with you, you might think that's not a rough week at all. However, I didn't feel at my best, and I didn't feel on top of my game. Not just my podcasting game, but just my personal game and my normal routine game. And a lot of factors played into it. My husband caught a cold, which meant hearing him cough a lot at night, which meant not sleeping as much, which means not as much patience, not as much warm, loving, positive energy for my husband and kids and myself throughout the day. My daughter developed a fever, mild fever, and it's gone now, but seeing her being off is tough too. And we go to a gymnastics class, and she wasn't quite herself there either. So all that to say, a rough day for me now is different from a rough day for me 10 years ago, which is going to be different from a rough day for me in 10 years, and is going to be different from what you consider a rough day. The fact that you're alive and that you have access to a podcast shows that there's a lot of good things happening in your life. But I also know that there are things that you're not as happy with in your life, and that's just the reality of things. And if we want to, we can always look at life and compare, and there's always going to be people who have an easier life than we do, and there's always going to be people who have a tougher life than we do. But one goal of my podcast is to just be me. And like I said earlier, this episode was originally an evening reflection, but I started thinking that maybe it should be after a rough day or at the end of a rough day reflection. And I'm not a person who makes pivots that easily. We just talked about pivots in the last month's theme. But I started to think, okay, what's more valuable for my audience? And I started to think, well, both types of episodes would be valuable, either an evening reflection or reflections after a rough day. But I think if I want to keep things real, which is something that's important to me, reflections after a rough day, especially if I've just gone through a rough week, that's important. And so that's probably the longest intro I've ever had for an affirmation episode, but I don't give you the background to some of these episodes, and I want to try and mix things up a bit more. So this would seem like a good opportunity. So let's get into the affirmations now. Find a comfortable position. Feel your body loosen and unwind. Get into the moment now. Notice your breaths. Okay, rough day. It's time to close the day, and I accept that everything wasn't easy peasy today. I felt the strain of today. Things didn't go as they normally do. I didn't have the strength and energy I usually have. I didn't have the patience and lightheartedness that I typically have. But it's okay to have an off day. It's okay to lower my standards on days like this. I am human. Even with my many blessings, every day has potential for stresses, challenges, and incompletions. And I'm not going to resist that. I accept today. I accept who and what I am today and every day. I am a great person. I do my best. And on days like this, I grab the lowest hanging fruit of self-care. And the rest can wait until tomorrow. I'll make a few affirmations for myself and then just rest. Good night, rough day. Good night to the amazing you. And so I encourage you, if this helps you on a rough day, to keep it in your back pocket because, well, there's going to be more of them. Hopefully not many of them, but there will be them down the road. And we've got to find our self-care strategies, even in those times, because sometimes we really need them to stay afloat. That is this week's episode. Don't forget you can get the reflection worksheet, which goes with the theme for this month, which is reflections, by going to affirmationpod.com/reflect. Or if you're in the US, text reflect to 44222. Again, those links are affirmationpod.com/reflect or texting reflect to 44222 in the US. I'd also love when you're not having so rough of a day, or heck, even when you are, because giving back sometimes can help you get out of a funk too. Leave a rating and or review in iTunes, and that will help others find the podcast. And if they listen to this episode, maybe it'll give them a boost on their rough days. All right. This is Josie with Affirmation Pod, your home for personal development. Thank you so much for clicking play and connecting in today. Bye for now.